Have you ever seen a woman so sure of love that she would gamble a fifth of her entire fortune on a single promise? Not stocks, not property, not business expansion, just 2 rings made of the rarest diamonds money could buy. Lagos had seen wealth, it had seen weddings, it had seen flamboyant celebrations, but nothing prepared the city for the kind of woman Amara Eze was, or the kind of love she believed in. Amara wasn't your regular Lekki big girl or Banana Island spouse who married wealth. She built hers. From a small jewelry stall in Balogun Market to owning one of the most exclusive gem houses in Africa, she was a quiet storm in designers' heels. Her company, Amaze Gems & Co., supplied high-end diamonds, emeralds, rubies, and custom pieces to billionaires, first ladies, celebrities, monarchs, and even foreign collectors. She didn't chase luxury chased her. She lived in a sleek, glass and marble mansion in Eco Atlantic, not the type with loud gates and gold lions, but the kind that whispered money, with soft lighting, imported art, and a private alligator that opened directly into her penthouse suite. On Lagos Island, her name moved like perfume, expensive, soft, and unforgettable. But for all her wealth and elegance, the thing people admired most was her heart. Amara was kind without noise. She sponsored widows' children in Mushin, paid medical bills for strangers at LUTH, and funded scholarships for young girls in low-income areas. She didn't need paparazzi or hashtags. Her impact spoke for itself. So when word got out that she was getting married, Lagos society didn't just buzz. It trembled with curiosity. Who was the lucky man? His name was Toby Falana, handsome, charismatic, smooth-talking, with the kind of smile that disarmed even the suspicious. He worked in one of those high-rise corporate offices in Victoria Island, consulting, finance, something prestigious enough to sound worthy, but flexible enough that nobody could define his exact role. He carried himself with the calm arrogance of a man who understood charm and timing. They met at a private charity gala in Ekui, not the noisy type, one of those polished indoor events filled with silent auctions, classic canopies, and strings music. He wasn't intimidated by her presence. He didn't rush. He approached her slowly, spoke like they were old friends, and made her laugh, something money and power had quietly stolen from her life. For a woman like Amara, confidence without desperation was attractive. In less than a year, he proposed. There was no drama, no viral videos, no staged helicopter drop, just a candlelit dinner on the balcony of her seaside home and a simple gold band he bought with his own money, no diamonds, no pressure. She said yes. Their wedding became the talk of Lagos before invitations even went out. The high-class gossip said it would be the biggest wedding since Dangote's daughter. The blog said the budget would shake the economy. Vendors prayed to be contacted. Some women prayed for their Shwebi plug. Amara wasn't the type to rent horses and scatter fireworks, no. Her style was subtle extravagance. She believed the real flex was in the details, not the volume. And that was exactly how she approached the wedding rings. One quiet evening, weeks before the wedding, she sat alone in her private gem studio in Ikoyi. The room was a vault of brilliance, rare stones in velvet drawers, magnifying lamps, engraved metal trays, and design sketches pinned to soft boards. She dismissed her workers early and locked the door herself. Some people dream of fairy tale gowns, others dream of the perfect venue. Amara dreamed of rings, not just to wear, but to tell a story. She wasn't going to buy them, she was going to create them. She picked 2 rough, uncut diamonds she had purchased from a South African collector years ago. Flawless clarity, colorless brilliance, stones that didn't just catch light, they captured it and bent it to their will. One stone was slightly larger, the other slimmer, both unique and perfectly matched, like 2 souls. She personally supervised the cutting, shaping, and setting. Platinum bands, hand-engraved inner lining with their initials woven into the metal using microscopic precision. The designs took weeks, with specialists flown in from Antwerp and Geneva to perfect them. By the time they were ready, she had spent almost 20% of her entire fortune. Yes, the same fortune people used to describe her status. She didn't blink. To her, love wasn't something you do halfway. If you believed in it, you invested in it. Toby had no idea how much the rings cost. She didn't tell him, and he didn't ask. All he said when she showed him was, "Babe, these are the most beautiful rings I've ever seen." She smiled and believed him. The wedding was held at Harbour Point, Victoria Island. The venue was transformed into a glass garden with white orchids, crystal chandeliers, and floating candles on mirrored tables. The guest list was tight. Ministers, CEOs, oil moguls, celebrities, a few traditional rulers, and close friends. Amara wore a white fitted dress custom made in Paris, minimal jewelry, and her hair in a sleek bolo bun. Toby wore a perfectly tailored tuxedo, standing by the altar with that charming confidence that made women sigh. When it was time to exchange rings, the hall went silent. Not because they were expecting drama, but because there was an aura about the moment. The diamonds on those rings didn't just glitter, they announced themselves without noise. People whispered, "Ha, see brilliance, na real diamond be this so. Omo, no be phone like they do this thing shine." The rings stole the spotlight without trying. Photographers focused, guests craned their necks. The internet that night nearly caught fire when the first pictures dropped. To outsiders, it was a rich woman showing off. To Amara, it was a covenant made visible. To Toby, well, nobody really knew what it meant to him. After the ceremony, the couple moved into Amara's penthouse in Echo Atlantic. She didn't ask him to sign a prenup. She didn't hide her accounts. She trusted with her full chest. He settled into the luxury like water entering a glass. Comfortable, shapeless, easily adjusting. Amara's staff respected him more because she did. They called him Sir, with the same reverence they used for her. But Lagos always watches, and Lagos always talks. Some said she loved him more than he loved her. Some said he was too smooth. Others said love was blind, but money was wearing contact lenses. Amara ignored all of it. She was in love, and her love wasn't the type that listened to gossip. Every morning, she would look at his ring on his finger and smile like she had won. She believed in loyalty the way jewelers believe in pressure-made perfection. And that is where the tragedy begins. Not with violence or drama, but with trust so deep he didn't see the shadows forming behind it. Because sometimes, the person holding your heart is already cracking it. Slowly, quietly, and with a smile. And in Lagos, secrets don't stay buried forever. Some marriages break with noise, shouting matches, flying insults, and public disgrace. Others break like glass under a velvet cloth, quietly, invisibly, with no witnesses until the damage is complete. Amara's marriage belonged to the second category. From the outside, her life still looked perfect. Her wedding ring still glowed like promise. Her smile still held its softness. Her home still smelled of imported candles on ocean breeze. But somewhere in the city, beneath soft lights and curated lies, a crack was already forming.
Toby didn't change overnight. He didn't suddenly become cold or distant. That would have been too obvious. He played his role like a well-rehearsed actor, gentle in public, affectionate in private, attentive enough to erase suspicion before it settled. Amara trusted him fully because nothing in his behavior gave her a reason not to. Trust, to her, wasn't something you rationed. You either gave it or you withheld it, and she had given him everything. What she didn't know, what she would never have imagined, was that while she was building dreams at boardroom tables and designing gems for royal families, another woman had become part of her husband's secret schedule. Her name was Selena, though her real name wasn't as fancy. She had rebranded herself the way some Lagos girls rebrand their lives, starting from their Instagram handles. She lived in a serviced apartment in Asapa, London, the type with tinted glass balconies, backup generators, and uniformed security guards who pretended not to notice the cars that arrived at odd hours. Selena wasn't loud. She wasn't one of those women who advertised their lifestyle with ring light videos and champagne boomerangs. She was the quiet kind of soft life babe, the one who dressed in silk lounge sets, ate salads when someone was watching, and picked her words with care. Her makeup was always subtle, but flawless. Her perfume announced her 5 seconds before she entered a room. She had perfected the science of appearing expensive without revealing the sponsor behind the cost. She and Toby didn't meet by accident. He spotted her at a private birthday dinner in Ecate, one of those gatherings where nobody knows the celebrant personally, but everyone is dressed like they do. She sat alone at the bar when he approached, sipping a pink cocktail with a glass straw. He didn't start with forced compliments. He simply asked, "You don't look like someone who enjoys loud parties. Are you waiting for someone or waiting to leave?" She smirked, adjusted her braids, and said, "I'm waiting to be noticed by the right person." That was all the permission he needed. From there, the arrangement unfolded naturally. He never introduced himself as a struggling man. He didn't lie that he was single, but he didn't volunteer the truth either. He spoke about complications, not marriage. He spoke about distance, not loyalty. To Selena, that was enough. She wasn't looking for husband material. She was looking for attention, soft skin contact, and the kind of man who would pay rent without turning into a landlord. Their affair didn't come with drama at first. Toby visited her apartment 2 or 3 times a week, mostly weekday evenings when Lagos traffic could hide 1,000 sins. He always drove himself. He never stayed the night. He never sent risky texts. He called her baby, but never my love. He never told her about Amara. But the kind of woman Selena was, she could sense when a man belonged to someone else. She didn't care. She liked the arrangement. He brought her things, perfumes from Dubai, shoes from Italy, wigs with lace that melted into scalp. She cooked sometimes, but mostly they ordered in. She didn't pressure him for titles. She wasn't looking for forever. She was looking for comfort. The first time she saw his wedding ring was 2 weeks after their affair began. He had taken it off before entering her apartment and dropped it carelessly on her marble side table. When she asked why he removed it, he shrugged and said, "Force of habit. I don't like wearing jewelry when I'm relaxed." She believed the lie. Or maybe she didn't. Either way, she didn't push. But that ring, it fascinated her. It wasn't like the regular gold bands you saw on most Lagos men. It held a diamond so clear it looked like frozen light. She had once dated a jeweler's son, so she could tell real stones from fake with a single glance. That ring was worth more than some people's full year rent. She started playing with it when he wasn't looking, holding it against the light, turning it slowly between her fingers, wondering what kind of woman owned the other half. Toby always collected it before leaving, until the day he didn't. It happened on a Wednesday evening. The sky was still holding on to its pale blue afterglow, and the city hummed outside with traffic noise and generator rumbles. Toby lay on her bed, shirt off, scrolling through his phone. Selena was in the kitchenette, pouring wine into stemless glasses. When she returned, she saw the ring resting again on the table. But this time, he was too deep into a work call to notice her interest. He spoke in corporate English, the kind reserved for clients and colleagues. She picked up the ring and twirled it between her fingers. When he ended the call, he didn't reach for it immediately. They talked, they touched, they laughed, they moved. By the time he got dressed and left, his mind was elsewhere, and the ring staying behind. He didn't realize it while driving. He didn't realize it when he entered his house. He didn't realize it until much later that night when he reached for his hand absent-mindedly and felt bare skin. A hot flash of panic struck him. He checked his pockets, his car, his jacket, his drawers, The bedside table, nothing. His heart began to pound, not because of the sentimental meaning, but because he knew the cost. He knew Amara. He knew how much she must have put into that ring, and he knew she trusted him too much to suspect the truth. At past midnight, he texted Selena. "Did I leave anything at your place?" She saw the message immediately, but didn't reply. She was lying in bed looking at the ring on her palm. Not like a thief, more like an observer. His next message came faster. "My ring, check under the bed or on the side table. I think it's there." Still no reply. He tried calling. She declined the call twice. Then she sent a voice note, just 5 seconds long. "You know where to find it." No apology, no panic, just a soft, wicked acknowledgement. He knew better than to drive there at that time. Amara was home. Their bedroom lights were still on. He couldn't risk suspicion. So he typed one last message. "I'll come tomorrow evening. Please keep it safe." She didn't respond. The next morning, he wore a different ring. Plain, gold-plated, nothing special. When Amara noticed, he told her his original ring was at the office. She didn't question further. Why would she? Meanwhile, Selena hid the ring in the most intimate place in her apartment, under her pillow. Not because she wanted to wear it, not because she planned to sell it, but because power sometimes looks like silence, and holding something precious that doesn't belong to you can feel like control. She pressed the ring into the softness of her pillow, lay her head on it, and smiled slightly. She didn't know it yet, but that single act would set off a chain of events that would burn through love, pride, and life itself. And while she drifted to sleep with stolen treasure beneath her head, somewhere across the city, Amara was curled up next to the man she loved, unaware that the first crack in her perfect world was hiding in another woman's bed. The shine was still there, but underneath it, something dark had already begun. Morning crept into the Adiemi penthouse like a respectful guest, soft and silent, slipping through floor-to-ceiling windows draped in silk. The Lagos skyline shimmered below, as though it too were still drunk on the glamour of Grace and Tunde's union.
The city hadn't fully recovered from the spectacle of their wedding. Social media was still ablaze, blogs still speculating, strangers still admiring. Their love had been wrapped, celebrated, and displayed like a trophy. But the world only sees the glass. It never checks for the fractures. Grace stood in front of her vanity, untouched coffee on the marble table beside her. Her hair, still flowing from the night before, cascaded down her back in perfect waves. A perfect woman in a perfect home, framed by diamonds she'd earned herself. Yet perfection has a way of becoming a costume, and today hers was starting to itch. The reflection staring back at her was flawless, but the silence behind it was not. From the doorway, Tunde appeared, clean-shaven and already dressed in a pressed white shirt and tailored slacks, his watch glinting like a warning. He leaned against the doorframe with that smile of his, the charming one people tweeted about. "You're up early," he said, voice smooth. She didn't turn. "I couldn't sleep." Tunde, where's your ring? Those 5 words were small, but they punched straight through him. His spine stiffened. He turned too quickly, then slowed his movement, trying to appear casual. The lie formed in under a second. Oh, I must have forgotten it in the office restroom. I took it off to wash my hands and, yeah, I left in a hurry. He smiled a practiced, harmless smile. I'll pick it up tomorrow morning. Grace held his eyes for a moment. Her mind searched his face for the smallest flinch, the tiniest twitch. There was nothing obvious, just a man being a man, forgetful, tired, human. She exhaled slowly and nodded. All right, please don't misplace it. You know how much. I know, he interjected almost too sharply. She blinked, but let it go. They had dinner. They talked about her upcoming charity gala, his supposed staff reshuffling at the firm, and the Legos flooding that had ruined traffic yet again. She smiled often. She listened. She didn't push further. But something had shifted. Quietly. Tunde didn't eat well. The rice tasted like regret. Every bite scraped his conscience. His mind wasn't at that table. It was in an apartment in Lekki, where soft perfume and lies shared the same bed. He remembered the moment he left her place. Linda, soft life, slay queen, with curated taste and fake innocence. He'd been in a hurry, rushing because Grace had called twice. He hadn't realized the ring was missing. He never looked at his hand. Now, panic crawled beneath his skin, slow and venomous. After dinner, Grace retired to her private study to finish some designs. Tunde claimed he had emails to sort. He went upstairs and shut the door to their room, locking it though no one asked him to. He checked his drawers, his pockets, his briefcase, the bathroom sink. He knew the truth, but desperation demands rituals of denial. When those failed, he sat on the edge of the bed and held his head in his hands. He could hear his pulse. The ring wasn't in the office. It was at Linda's. Or worse, gone. Grace, downstairs in her study, tried to ignore the faint ache in her chest. She told herself men forget things, even good men, even men who love deeply. But the ring wasn't just gold. It was identity, commitment, her heart molded in clarity and fire. She shook off the thoughts and returned to her sketches. But every so often she found herself staring at her own ring, still on her finger, shining with a kind of loyalty she assumed was mirrored. By midnight, Tunde was still awake, staring at the ceiling. Grace slept quietly by then, breathing softly, one hand under her cheek, the other resting near him. Her ring glinted in the faint light from the window. He turned away. The next morning, she didn't mention the ring. She kissed him goodbye and reminded him not to skip breakfast. He left early, promising he'd retrieve it. But first, he drove to Lekki. Linda lived in one of those serviced apartments designed for influencers with expensive tastes and empty stories. She greeted him in a silk robe, smiling like she had no secrets. "You came early," she teased, moving close. "I'm not here for that," he said flatly. His tone startled her. He rarely used it. "My ring. My wedding ring. Did you see it? I might have dropped it here." Her eyes flickered just for a fraction of a second. Then she laughed. "No, babe. I didn't see any ring." She turned away too quickly. He scanned the room with his eyes, but didn't want to seem desperate. Linda was good. Too good. She wore sophistication like perfume. Her lies always came dressed in silk. He stayed only 10 minutes, then left. On his way down the elevator, his heart slapped reality into him. If Linda had it, that wasn't an accident. That was leverage. Meanwhile, Grace was at her showroom in Victoria Island. A wealthy client was browsing emerald sets for an anniversary. Grace spoke warmly, smiled often, and wore her poise like a second skin. But her mind trailed back to last night. She didn't voice her worry, but an internal voice whispered on loop. If it were you, would you misplace it? If it cost you nearly
everything. Would you misplace it casually? She pushed the thought aside and continued working. By afternoon, she was tired. She texted him, "Did you get the ring?" He lied again. "Yes, I have it. I'll bring it home." That message turned her silent concern into temporary peace. That night, he came home empty-handed. She watched his hands again. No ring. He noticed her eyes before she said a word. "It's in my car. I'll bring it up later." Grace wanted to believe him. She did. Trust was a habit, not just a feeling. Hours passed, and the ring never appeared. At 2 a.m., she woke to drink water. On her way back to bed, she paused at the window, looking at the city lights like they held answers. She didn't cry. Grace wasn't built from fragility, but she felt something shift inside her, like a glass table taking its first crack. She turned and looked at him sleeping, or pretending to. 2 weeks slid by like shadows across marble. Each day the lie grew legs. Each night the silence gained teeth. Grace didn't fight. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't cry. And that, more than anything, was the first sign of the ending he didn't see coming. One Thursday afternoon, the kind of day that Victoria Island glittered with sun and ocean haze, Grace was at her showroom reviewing the final touches on a new exhibition display. A few clients had dropped by in the morning and left satisfied. Staff were arranging a new glass case for incoming Burmese rubies. She was calm, focused, holding a jeweler's loupe to her eye while inspecting a teardrop diamond meant for a custom choker. Her phone was silent. Her heart was quiet. The ache was still there, but she had learned how to walk around it. Then, the glass door chimed. A woman stepped in, dressed like money she didn't earn. A fitted jumpsuit, micro bag, flawless wig, and sunglasses that weren't necessary indoors. She moved with that curated elegance that came from lifestyle sponsorships, not legacy. She took slow steps, letting the scent of her designer perfume announce her before her voice did. "Good afternoon," she said, sliding off the sunglasses. Grace glanced up briefly and gave the polite half-smile she reserved for unserious customers. "Welcome. How may I help you?" The woman didn't introduce herself. She reached into her bag and brought out a small velvet pouch, the kind Grace's company used when packaging premium engagement orders. She placed it on the counter with carefully manicured fingers and simply said, "I want to sell this." Grace didn't initially react. People sometimes try to resell pieces from old collections. Sometimes they brought stolen items from private dealers. She had seen everything in her line of work. But the moment she untied the pouch and tipped its contents into her palm, the world thinned. There it was. The ring. The male band. Identical cut, identical clarity. The same unique placement of side stones she had designed herself. The same microscopic inscription inside the band, her initials and his, entwined in platinum. Her fingers closed around it so gently it was almost reverent. She didn't look up immediately. "Where did you get this?" she asked, voice low, steady. The side chick, Linda, smiled as though she were discussing nail polish. "It belonged to my babe. He doesn't need it anymore. I figured you'd pay well since it's obviously a one-of-a-kind." Grace raised her eyes slowly. Nothing moved in her expression. No fury, no panic, just a frozen, almost clinical stillness. "Have a seat," she said. Linda scoffed. "Babe, I'm not here for gist. Just price it. I'm in a hurry." Grace picked up her phone, not to make a call, but to press a silent alarm under the counter. Her security staff didn't play with protocol. 2 guards appeared in under 30 seconds. Before Linda could process the turn of events, Her handbag was confiscated, the exits locked, and the store manager had alerted law enforcement through a direct line reserved for stolen merchandise cases. Linda's arrogance evaporated fast. She tried to protest, to bluff, to act offended, but she wasn't built for pressure without makeup and followers. The police arrived and escorted her out. Not gently. Grace didn't follow them outside. She stayed right where she was and held the ring in her palm. Not once did she cry. At the station, the interrogation wasn't gentle. Linda tried lies first. Said she found it, said it was from a former boyfriend, said she bought it secondhand. Each attempt fell apart under the kind of questioning Lagos police were famous for. Hours later, she broke. She confessed to everything: the affair, the theft, the visits, the lies. But the part that ripped the facade beyond repair was the casual detail she added. He didn't even notice when it fell off. I took it before he left. I thought he'd come back for it, but when he didn't, I waited to sell it. The entire thing was recorded on video with timestamps and signatures. Grace didn't go to the station. She didn't need to. The authorities sent her a full copy of the recorded confession. She went home, waited for Tunde to return, and placed her phone on the center table, screen facing up. When he entered the living room and saw her sitting there, he knew, even before she pressed play. The recording was short, brutal, undeniable. She didn't speak while it played. He didn't interrupt. There was no point. When the video ended, she looked at him, not with hatred, something worse: finality. I designed that ring as a promise. You broke it before the gold even settled on your skin. He tried to speak. His throat failed him. She stood up, picked up her car keys, and left the house without a shout, without an insult, without a warning. He called her name once. She kept walking. The silence that followed was the first consequence he truly felt. The scandal never went public. Grace didn't smear his name. She didn't tell her friends. She didn't drag him through divorce courts or tabloids. She simply stepped away from him, emotionally first, physically days later. Tunde stopped sleeping, stopped eating, stopped laughing at things that used to amuse him. Shame weighed more than any punishment. Guilt was no longer gnawing him, it was consuming him. 40 days after the confrontation, he drove alone to Echo Atlantic Tower at midnight. He parked his car neatly, left the engine running, and took the elevator to one of the highest floors still under construction. He didn't leave a note. He didn't make a call. He just climbed over the railing and gave the night his last breath. The city swallowed the sound. Grace mourned him for the rest of her life. Not loudly, not publicly, just in the quiet spaces where love once lived. She never remarried. She never sold the ring. She locked it away in a glass box lined with blue velvet and never opened it again. Some losses don't heal. Some betrayals don't fade. Some silences never end. And in a world built on glitter and promises, she learned the hardest truth of all. Diamonds don't break. People do.